When you look back at human history, with its endless cycles of war, famine, and natural disasters, it is completely normal to ask yourself a very human question. Is anyone actually at the steering wheel? The biblical vision of the seven seals offers an answer to that question. It shows us that Jesus Christ holds the timeline of history firmly in his hand, and he is guiding it toward a guaranteed rescue. To see how this works, the book of Revelation takes our focus off the chaos on earth and zooms out to a completely different setting, the throne room of heaven, a place of perfect order. Here, God holds a document. In Roman times, a scroll like this acted as a legal title deed. This specific scroll contains the master blueprint for the end of time, the exact steps required to resolve the chaos on earth. But the scroll is locked shut with 7 wax seals. John, the man seeing this vision, actually breaks down and weeps. He realizes that no human being in history has the moral track record required to step forward, break those seals, and claim ownership of history. Then someone steps forward. Jesus is introduced into the scene, described as a lamb. Because he sacrificed himself on the cross to redeem humanity, he has the legal and moral right to take the scroll. He is the rightful heir. This sequence shows us that the apocalyptic symbols ahead are not random horrors. Instead, we are watching the Lamb who owns the earth actively diagnosing its deepest problems so he can finally bring the solution. This timeline shows how that process works. Jesus breaks the seals on the scroll one by one. As each seal opens, a different era of Christian history unfolds. The first seal reveals a white horse. In this book, white is the color of purity and victory. This rider wears a Stephanos, the golden wreath you see here, which was the ancient prize for a winner. It represents the very beginning of the timeline, when the message of Jesus was still pure and spreading rapidly across the world. But the second seal reveals a fiery red horse, whose rider is allowed to take peace from the earth. Because red is the color of conflict, this marks a shift where that early unity began to break, replaced by human divisions and political compromises that pulled the community apart. The third seal reveals a black horse. The rider holds handheld scales, exactly like the ones shown here. In the ancient world, measuring out basic bread-making grain ounce by ounce meant a severe famine was happening. On our timeline, this represents a period where the actual message of Jesus became scarce because it was being strictly controlled and rationed by powerful religious leaders. This woodcut print illustrates the fourth seal, a pale horse ridden by a skeletal figure named Death. This represents the lowest point on the timeline, the Middle Ages. When the message of Jesus is suppressed or forgotten, it leads to a period of decline and suffering that feels like a literal dark age. We see centuries of human failure and corruption. But notice what remains constant. Jesus never lets go of the scroll. Even in the darkest centuries, he maintains control of the timeline. History is usually written by the people holding the power, but halfway through the seals, God intentionally shifts the focus away from the conquerors and looks directly at the victims, the people who suffered simply for holding on to their faith. As the fifth seal opens, we hear their voices. They ask a question millions of oppressed people have asked. How long, God, until you step in and bring justice? The answer they receive is to rest for just a little while longer. The divine plan is already in motion, and it will reach its conclusion. To someone in that prison cell, the idea of God stepping in to judge the world sounds like a promised rescue. It is the moment their suffering finally ends and their faith is proven right. This illustration shows the events of the sixth seal, which brings us to the final days of Earth's history. The text describes a sequence of massive cosmic signs, a darkened sun, a red moon, and falling stars, signaling that Christ is about to arrive. When these events happen, humanity splits into 2 camps. Some people are terrified and try to hide from the events, but others look up, recognizing these signs, and welcome them. Before the final seal opens, the vision pauses to explain why that second group is so confident. God places a special mark, called a seal, on his people. It means he claims them as his own, and he guarantees their safety through the final days of trouble. He makes them a concrete promise. He will personally guide them like a shepherd, and he will wipe every single tear from their eyes. And then the Lamb breaks the 7th and final seal. You might expect a massive, deafening finale. Instead, there is total silence in heaven for 30 minutes. 7 represents completeness. The heavenly work is finished. Jesus and the angelic host have vacated the throne room, traveling to earth to perform the final rescue. These visions are not meant to be a scary sequence of symbols. They are a promise that the Lamb who sacrificed himself for humanity is the exact same King coming back to save it. Thanks for watching.